Chris Mannix of Sports Illustrated back here on the show. How you doing, Chris?
What's up, Rich? How you doing?
I'm doing fine. I'm staying in my role. I'm not tapping out. I'm not telling you and then telling my bosses later on. We're staying put. I mean, how bizarre in terms of all the things that you've covered in your years covering the NBA was this?
It was probably the most shocking because, look, it's not only I think it's probably the best job in the NBA because you are overseeing the NBA's marquee franchise, and it was not one in a state of disrepair. I mean, you had LeBron James, you had cap space, you had all your draft picks, you had solid young players. It was a disappointing year, but the cupboard isn't exactly bare in LA, and you've got carte blanche to do whatever you want, which Magic basically affirmed in that press gaggle the other day. And there weren't really clamors for his job either. I mean, sometimes when guys are struggling in the role, you start talking about maybe they'll step down. You didn't hear any of that when it came to Magic. So I've been trying to think of something more surprising, and the NBA is certainly one big soap opera after another, but this has to be at or near the very top of the list.
Well, in your piece that you wrote about this episode, this saga, you said essentially that this is an opportunity and that Jeannie Buss should throw dollars and rose petals at the feet of somebody elsewhere in the NBA community that's done this before and tell them to come run the Lakers for her. And it seems like she might not be doing that. As a matter of fact, according to Ramona Shelburne, expanding the role of Rob Pelinka, the general manager, former agent of Kobe Bryant, and as I should also say, Michigan Wolverine. So what are you hearing about all this, Chris?
Well, I think we're still in a very wait and see mode right now. I mean, if everything is accurate about how this all went down, Jeannie Buss, her head has to be spinning a little bit, and empowering Rob Pelinka now is the obvious thing to do. There's not a lot to do right now. Certainly draft workouts need to start being organized, and Rob Pelinka's done that before. But there's a little bit of room to kind of make a consequential decision. I would be stunned if they don't at least look outside the organization. I mean, they have infinite resources. They have, as I mentioned, an appealing job. Maybe Pelinka winds up being the guy. His relationship with the Lakers runs deep by extension of his dealings as the agent of Kobe Bryant. But this to me was Jeannie Buss's mulligan. Like she hired Magic Johnson, and that was fine. And at the end of a sour run with Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak, it felt like a reasonable thing to do. Now she knows that she needs something different. And, a lot of people have written this, and I agree with it. The Lakers are very much a family-oriented business. They've got to go outside the family. They've got to take a black check and send it to the likes of Sam Presti or Masai Ujiri or R.C. Buford, somebody that has done this job at a high level in the past, and I think would be open to a Laker-like opportunity. If that isn't done, it to me is a catastrophic mistake for the Lakers.
Well, are you allowed to do that, or is that tampering? Do you have to have permission to do that? I mean, aren't these folks that you just mentioned locked into contracts, Chris?
It's not. Look, it's not tampering because you do have to. Like there are ways around. You don't have to ask permission when you hire anybody under contract. But I mean, we just heard all about this in the last week about Washington and their potential interest in Tim Conley, the GM of the Denver Nuggets. You can get around all that. Now, a team that has a guy under contract has the right to say no, and if they do eventually say yes, they have the right to ask for compensation, which I'm sure a top executive in the likes of Presti or Ujiri would bring back in return. But if you're the Lakers, who cares? Like, if it means giving up a first-round pick down the line to get Sam Presti, you go and you do it 100%. Same thing with Masai Ujiri or R.C. Buford. Everybody looks at R.C. Buford as like this San Antonio fixture for life. Has anybody ever really asked him to do something else? Like, has anybody offered him a whole bunch of money to run his own team? I wonder what he would say in that particular situation.
Chris Mannix is Sports Illustrated here on the Rich Eisen Show. Last one on this, and I guess it was perfectly timed. Dwayne Wade's finales for LeBron to show up and be there for a friend, because I think a lot of people, because they always assume the worst when it comes to LeBron in terms of being power hungry and needing to have the control, that he's out there a day after all this happens, living his own life, living his best life. How much does he have to do with this, and what's going on in LeBron's camp with 2+1 years left on his contract, and this all playing out mere weeks before the free agency period that's most crucial potentially in his stay with the Lakers finally arrives?
Yeah, I don't think that LeBron had anything to do with Magic's decision to resign. I think that what he said at that press gaggle represented a large percentage of why he chose to walk away. That, look, he just doesn't have the stomach to do this on a daily basis. The NBA being such a global game now, you've got to hop on planes and fly to, Croatia or Russia to scout guys on a whim. That's what all these GMs do. I mean, you saw the documentary on Giannis over All-Star Weekend. John Hammond, the GM of the Bucks, then just hopped on a plane when he heard about this kid and went out and scouted him and bought into him at that time enough to make him a mid-first-round draft pick. So I don't think Magic had all that in him. Now, LeBron has put the Lakers kind of in a difficult situation, because if LeBron wasn't there, you could certainly make an argument that the Lakers were on a pretty reasonable rebuilding track, right? I mean, they've drafted very well over the last couple of years. Kyle Kuzma was a terrific pick. Josh Hart was a terrific pick. The jury's kind of out on Lonzo, and you can argue that Jason Tatum and De'Aaron Fox would have been better picks. But I think Lonzo can become a starting-level, high-level NBA point guard. But because LeBron is there, everything has to be accelerated, and you have to find a way to piece together a winner. That's the ultimate conundrum for either Rob Pelinka or the next GM that comes in there. Do you build a team the right way, or do you try to, cut and paste together a contending-type team in the hopes that LeBron, at age 34, can still elevate that team to a championship-level team? It's a quandary that I think the Lakers are in, because the right thing to do is to build it slowly, use your lottery pick this year, get the right guy, go out and try to sign a top-tier free agent. But if you don't get him, don't overspend on long-term contracts like they did in the past with Timothy Mozgov and Luol Deng. But you run into that problem with LeBron, because he's got 2 years maybe with the ability to lead a team to a championship as the number one guy, and it's tough to make that work.
Last one for you, Chris Mannix, on the future. Are you of the belief that Kevin Durant to the Knicks is a quote-unquote done deal?
I don't know if anything's a done deal, because ultimately the Knicks have to sit in the room with them, and the Knicks have historically been just bad when they do that.
Yes.
I mean, you go back to 2010 with all the free agent meetings they took, they were not impressive in those meetings. And yes, it's a new group. Scott Perry is leading it. Steve Mills is there. But what happens if James Dolan gets in the room and screws it up? I mean, it's possible. It's possible. But like everybody else, Rich, I've been hearing all along that strong leanings for Kevin Durant to go to New York. And I just can't believe the Knicks would be crazy enough, as crazy as they've been in the last 2 decades, crazy enough to just give away Kristaps Porzingis unless they knew that there was a high chance they get Durant and a pretty good chance they get Durant and somebody else.
All right, Chris Mannix here on the Rich Eisen Show. I've got Terry Rozier coming up in hour number 3. Marcus Smart apparently on the shelf 4 to 6 weeks. How do the Celtics enter this first-round series, if you could best describe it, against the Pacers minus Oladipo?
Well, I think they're still in really good shape, because as invaluable as Marcus Smart is, they do have guys that can fill that void to a degree, and they're playing Indiana. And Indiana, they just can't score, Rich. I was at the last Celtic-Pacer game where the Celtics wiped the floor with them, and they've done some nice things with smoke and mirrors to try to mask the absence of Oladipo, but they just can't score at a level high enough to win, I think, an NBA playoff series. So I think they get through the first round. But if Smart's missing in that second round, and based on the timeline the Celtics laid out, 4 to 6 weeks, it looks like he will be, they're going to need everyone, from Jaylen Brown to Gordon Hayward. And Terry Rozier, I mean, look, I've talked to Terry about this multiple times. It's been a hard year for him, man. He's really struggled with his kind of re-entry into a backup role. He's gone from being a 35-minute per game point guard in the playoffs last year to, playing 25, 30 minutes at both guard spots, trying to find a rhythm. He's really struggled. He's been a great teammate about it, but he's really struggled in this. This, at least in the first couple of rounds, could be a big opportunity for Terry Rozier because he brings some defensive tenacity. He brings the kind of playmaking that's smart added to that mix. This could be a chance for redemption to a degree for Terry Rozier in the postseason.
Okay, and is Embiid suspect for answering the first-round bell as Elton Brand might have laid out there? Chris, what do you think?
I think he's very suspect. I've talked to a couple of people around that situation, and it's a lot of the same stuff. That they think he's going to play. How much he's going to play and at what level he's going to play remains incredibly unclear. And you could tell from the public comments from Elton Brand and the frustration. I mean, Brett Brown's never really frustrated. He's kind of saying, like, I'm done answering Joel Embiid questions right now. That told me something. You don't see a lot of that from Brett Brown. And I'm starting to get the sense, and a lot of people around the league are starting to get the sense that this Embiid knee thing could be more problematic than anyone is really letting on. So that's a game changer, too. I mean, the Nets have struggled against the Sixers at full strength, but if the Sixers aren't at full strength, this is now a golden opportunity for Brooklyn to advance in the playoffs.
Okay, ask the poll question to Chris Mannix before we send him into that good day, Christopher.
Yeah, Mannix, you just kind of hit on one of the matchups. What's the most intriguing first-round matchup? I went with these four: Celtics, Pacers, Sixers, Nets, Rockets, Jazz, Thunder, Blazers.
Yeah, I go Thunder Blazers on that one. The Thunder have the matchup that they probably want because without Yusuf Nurkic, the Blazers are a significantly weaker team. And if they can't beat Portland, I don't know what this offseason looks like. I mean, I don't think anything dramatic happens. But at the All-Star break, this Thunder team looked like a real threat to win the conference as a peer. They were playing top 10 level defense. They had two dynamic stars who could take over the game in the fourth quarter. Paul George was playing like an MVP. And then, really since February, their shooting just fell off a cliff. Like they're putting up some ghastly shooting numbers with George and Westbrook and Dennis Schroeder, three of their key offensive players kind of leading the way in that charge. So that's the most intriguing. Portland, can they be kind of this little engine that could? And can the Blazers, their guards, carry the day? Enes Kanter, can he show up in the postseason against his former team? But for Oklahoma City, you've got to win this series. Like, you've got to advance out of the first round. If you can't do it against a banged-up Blazer team, you have to wonder exactly who they're going to be able to do it against moving forward.
All right, last one for you then, Chris, is timeline it for me. How do you see the timeline here in Los Angeles with Luke Walton and Jeannie Buss making a decision? What's your best guess on that?
It's tough to read because until we know what they're going to do with that top executive position, I don't know. I mean, if the current regime stays in place with Rob Pelinka effectively being elevated, I think Luke Walton's going to stay because that means Jeannie Buss is going to have a lot of influence there, and we know, publicly and privately what we know about, that Jeannie really believes in Luke Walton. But if you're Jeannie Buss and you go outside the organization and you hire somebody, that person has to have the freedom to hire and fire their coach. That's just the way that it has to be. So I think Luke Walton is far more comfortable. I mean, I reported, others did, that Luke was, I don't know if he had his office packed, but he was ready to go at the end of the season before this Magic Johnson presser. But I don't think he's out of the woods yet in terms of being their head coach next year.
Chris, thanks for the time. We'll chat again real soon. Enjoy the playoffs, first round.
You got it, Rich.
You got it at SI Chris Mannix.
For more of The Rich Eisen Show, tune to Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV for free on BR Live or download The Rich Eisen Show app.